Well, welcome back, and thank you for watching this series, Suffering Beyond Belief. This is the final episode, sort of. It's the fourth episode. I will have one more video after this that will be a summary and more of a personal video, like my personal thoughts on the crucifixion and what that means. So, as you are watching now and maybe have been watching, hopefully learning as well, try to think of the motivation behind what's happening, behind what Jesus is going through. Again, we'll get to that in the fifth video, but at least in your mind, just kind of plant that seed. So in the words of Pilate, the Roman leader at the time, he says, "Ibis ad crucem, thou shalt go to the cross." The cross. So much can be said about the cross in all kinds of topics. But for this video, we will limit our discussion to the physical aspects of crucifixion. The cross. The road that Jesus walked to the cross is called the Via Dolorosa. It's said that road, somewhere between 500 to 600 meters, a third of a mile, maybe closer to a half of a mile. It's an easy walk for most adults. We could walk that and not have too much of a problem. However, Jesus wasn't normal. By this time, he was exhausted. We're talking about 8:30 or so in the morning. He's been awake for over 24 hours. His body certainly needed to rest. Adding to the exhaustion, he was thirsty. His body was dehydrated from lack of water and lack of blood, and so he was definitely in a serious condition. He just came from the flogging. We talked about that last episode. And so he is close to death. Maybe not right at the doorstep, but yes, he is very close. As I had mentioned before, the Romans, they've perfected this art of torture through various means, the flogging or whatever. But I think that I could say that nailing somebody to a cross, crucifying them, would be the pinnacle of this art form. See, the cross was probably in the shape of a capital T. We generally, in art or in churches, we see the standard, like a lowercase t form. Probably speaking, we don't necessarily know for sure, but history would generally tell us that the cross was probably something like this. Capital T. The side piece, or not the side piece, but the horizontal piece is called the patibulum, and then the stipe is the vertical piece. So the stipe here, this vertical piece, that would have already been secured into the ground at the site of the crucifixion. There might be multiples, perhaps hundreds. Crucifixion was a very normal thing at this point in history. The Romans did it all the time. They were very used to it. And so if you're crucifying 100 people in a day, well, having secured sites already there speeds up that process. The patibulum, however, the horizontal piece, that would have actually been carried by Jesus, the crucarius, if you will, the person who is about to be crucified. How is it that a man in the physical condition of Jesus at this point is supposed to carry this timber weighing 50, 60, 70 pounds and then carry it for a third or half of a mile? Well, yeah, that would have been difficult. Perhaps impossible in the condition that Jesus was in. Well, Matthew 23 tells us that Jesus had help. The exactor mortis, very cool word, is the Roman soldier who would lead the crucifixion. He recognized that Jesus was already, weak, dehydrated, all of these things, and his job is to make sure that this person doesn't die on the way to the crucifixion. He needs to get Jesus or whoever he's leading to the actual site And so he finds, some strong guy that he sees. The Bible says Simon of Cyrene. So Simon gets to carry that cross of Jesus, that patibulum, that crossbar. So now they arrive at Golgotha. The shape of the rock formations of the hill kind of look like a skull. Maybe that's the name. However it got its name, it is a place of death. The crucifixion was at this site. So Jesus, he's numb from severe exhaustion, resulting both from the physical and mental sufferings that we've already talked about. The hematotradisis in the garden, the nerve-wracking stabs of pain from the crown of thorns, and the mind-boggling brutality that he has just endured at the flogging. He's also just walked a long way. He would have been sweating. The sun would have been hot or warm on his flesh. The whole time that rough timber, carrying that splinters, ripping into all of the cuts and the bruises, the wounds, the tears of the skin already there, carrying that would have just aggravated that, opened those back up, made more blood. Very likely fainted, stumbled, even just fell completely over, maybe collapsed. Well, again, the soldier, this exactor mortis, would have made sure that Jesus was not going to die. After the flogging, the soldiers would have put a robe, or it says they put a robe on him. The Jewish sensitivities would have preferred that anyway. They didn't want Jesus being naked. So that robe now would have also been stuck to the wounds, almost glued in essence with the blood, the mucus or the serum that would have been part of the wounds would have been there. So as they get to the place of the cross, the Bible says in Mark that the soldiers, they cast lots. They gambled for this robe. Now, if it was a special robe or if it was a one-piece robe, they would have gambled for it and taken it, cast their lots. And I don't think that they were compassionate or tender. I feel like they would have just ripped that robe, again, reopening all of those wounds. It's as if Jesus, it's one thing after another. He can't get a break. Can't get any relief from the pain, from the suffering. Mark 15 says that it was the third hour when they crucified Jesus. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. Matthew 27 says from the 6th hour until the 9th hour, darkness came over the land. So from 9 o'clock, the third hour, to 3 o'clock, the 9th hour, 6-hour time frame, that's about how long Jesus hung on that cross. How is one crucified? How is one attached or fixed? Right. We know this. Nails in his hands, nails in his feet. Well, yeah, that's very, very much how it would have happened. The patibulum, that bar that he carried, would have been placed on the ground. The victim would have been laid back. Arms then would have been stretched out. So we would have had one soldier taking his arm and securing it. Another soldier probably on his chest and leg area to keep him from trying to remove or trying to get out of the way. And then a third soldier would actually be nailing the nails. So this would be repeated both one arm, then the other arm, and then the feet. These nails probably not sharp like the nails we would have today, probably square even. You're looking at 5 to 7 inches, so not a small piece. Even the location of the actual nail. Was it his hands? Was it the palm of his hands? Now, given the bones, you've got your bones here, these metacarpals. Then you've got your wrist bones, and there's a number of them here, the carpals. And then you have your 2 forearm bones, the radius and the ulna. There's a good bet that the actual nail was not right in the palm. The weight of Jesus would not, or the weight of any person couldn't be supported through here. But you go between these 2 bones, and then in here, you're going to find more strength. So there's a good bet that the nail was probably driven through the wrist. Romans could have known this. They could have felt exactly. The nail would have been driven through. There's a nerve there that would go through, and that nail going through would, again, more pain shooting up the arm and into the mind of Jesus. Just the pulling of the arm and straightening it out, again, would be painful as well. At this point, he might have a collapsed lung. Breathing would be difficult. So the one hand here, repeat that process again. More pain, more agony as the body is just being pushed to its limits. So then they would take this bar and they would lift it up with the person, with Jesus hanging on it. They lift it up, and it would probably be the stipe would be there, and then the bar would have a little groove, and it would just be able to almost like click or set right in the groove. And so can you hear the thud of this 60-pound timber being lifted up, dropped into place. Again, Jesus there, but he's supported now with nails in his hands. Well, I also know that Jesus had nails in his feet. But, given the legs, again, the soldiers would have had to torque the legs and the hips to get the feet to be the right angle. And the same deal where they would have found the strongest place in the foot. Again, the weight wasn't supporting this nail; it was securing, and so the placement might have not been as important as the hands or the wrist, but it would have been still important to get that nail. So the soldier pounds the nail, and at this point, Jesus is crucified. The pains wouldn't cease. They wouldn't stop. The brutal burning sensation would be over his entire body. Traumatic and hypovolemic shock are at elevated levels. Due to the scourging, the chest wall, lung trauma, and blood loss are all severe. Sweating and blood loss would combine to cause lightheadedness and problematic breathing. Blood pressure would be elevated to try to compensate for the loss of blood. Extreme fatigue would accentuate any and all pain. Even the sun and wind would have aggravated these wounds. Jesus was in a horrible state. Pain was ultimate. With each passing moment, the pain grows and is magnified. Jesus was almost dead. And all Jesus could do was wait. In the last video, I'll do a summary, and then again I will share some of my personal thoughts. And just know that what Jesus has gone through isn't in vain, and we'll get to that. Thank you again for watching this episode. I hope to see you for one final episode.